Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. Ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it's a very happy Tuesday morning, October the 17th, to you and yours. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. Drew Hicken is on the other side of the glass making things work. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I am happy that when we walked out this morning, it was a little chilly. I wouldn't call it cold, but I would call it, it's about what it felt like in Durham over the weekend, which is a good thing. And I know some of the showers we got yesterday here in North Florida are supposed to be part of a cold front. So fingers crossed it can stay, because I don't know about you, Drew, but I am sick and tired of going out in the middle of October and sweating. It's not fun.
Yeah, try walking to class every day like that. It's not exactly the greatest thing. I will say it's much more pleasant when it's nice and cool outside. So hopefully it stays that way. I'm worried it's probably just a morning thing, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, here's the thing: I can't have it be flipping back and forth, because I've already been sick twice this football season, and I got the surprise when I got home from Durham that my roommate is sick and thinks he might have strep. So I am kind of quarantining myself, and it's just to that point of just whatever you do, don't get sick. Whatever you do, don't get sick. Because if I get sick a third time in football season, because I'm one of those people who gets one head cold a year, I can expect it. It's funny. It usually either happens A, around Christmas, or B, on Miami week. No matter where Miami week is on the schedule, without fail, it always happens. So fingers crossed, I'm good. But we're certainly good today, and we thank you so much for waking up with us here at 6 a.m. on 97.9 ESPN Radio, or streaming over our own WTSM app, the TuneIn Radio app, or ESPNTallahassee.com. The podcast is on iTunes, Podcast Republic, WarChantRadio.com, YouTube, wherever, however. Thanks so much for doing that. And if you like the show, make sure you're rating and subscribe us, giving us 5 stars, giving us a good review. And plus, when you subscribe to the show, it helps you as well. radio@warchant.com. There's your email address if you want to reach out to the show. At Wake Up War Chants, the Twitter account. And finally, we can't do this without our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central, Township, all there in the heart of College Town. And, of course, now the Soto Baking Company. You were with our friends at Madso last night, weren't you, Drew?
I was, yeah. We were out there for my mom had a fundraiser for 26.2 with Donna from 6 to 8. It was a really good time. A couple people came out. A couple proceeds go to Breast Cancer Foundation, so it was fun.
Great thing. Great cause. Thankful to you and your mom for going out there and doing that. And, of course, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And, well, really, it's kind of turned almost into a just Cancer Awareness Month. I know the NFL switched that into just about anything, the crucial catch. And this is, of course, a moment where I think we all know that we have somebody in our lives impacted by cancer. And so it's a great thing that Madso had you and your mom out there and a good time. But we got to get going. We got some football to talk about. We have some Jimbo Fisher quotes to talk about. We're going to play Duly Quoted here in the next segment. But for right now, I wanted to touch on something that you knew was going to happen this week when you're about to play the Louisville Cardinals, and that's a little trip into the Wayback Machine. We're not going too far back, but we are headed to a very fateful day in 2016. And, of course, I think you know what I'm talking about. Lamar Jackson's first real Heisman moment when Florida State gets 63 hung on him in Papa John's Cardinal Stadium, in a game that really got away from Florida State quickly. A game where State had a couple moments, hung in there. It almost reminds me, the way that game slipped away almost reminds me of 2010, Jimbo Fisher's second game as head coach against Oklahoma. When Oklahoma and Florida State exchanged touchdowns really quick, they both made it look really easy, and you thought to yourself, oh, here we go. This is the game. This is going to be a blow-for-blow, heavyweight fight, and then it just took a split second, and things completely got away from Florida State.
and they were in the football game for a little bit longer in this one. But for me, it really reminded me of that Oregon game where, for a while, it just looked like it was going to be a really good football game. And then all of a sudden, a mistake here, a mistake there, and you look up and you're down 21 points and you said, what happened? A lot of people like to say that Oregon game, and they like to bring it up and roast Florida State. And as they should, you lost by a ton. But the football team gave up. It was 25-20 in the third quarter at one point. I mean, take away a couple of Dalvin Cook fumbles and that freak pick by Jameis and the freak fumble that the guy scoops up and scores. I mean, that was a good game for quite some time. Obviously, this Louisville game got away a little quicker than that, but because I think it was 35-10 at half after the catch the kid had down the sideline that bounced off Tavares McFadden. So. This game, it was same thing. I thought Florida State was in the game up until the Dalvin Cook Francois fumble exchange. I felt like that's when things really started taking a turn for the worst. As well as they had a long third down conversion where we missed a tackle, and that was just an omen of many missed tackles to come in that football game.
An FSU opponent converting a long third down, Drew. I've never heard of that before. I've never, ever, ever heard of that before. There's a lot of things that were remembered about that game. I will disagree with you a little bit on that Oregon game, and I'll explain why for a little bit. Because Jimbo Fisher got asked about that game yesterday. I told you we're going to play a little duly quoted in the next segment as well. But Jimbo Fisher got asked about that game. He had a pretty long, detailed answer. So I will warn you, this bit is a little long. It's about 2 minutes. But I think it's important for the context of what we're talking about. Here was Jimbo Fisher yesterday talking about Louisville in 2016.
Jimbo, did that game almost feel like an ambush at some point? Because you guys, nobody knew that Lamar would be quite what Lamar became. It was early in the season. You guys had just lost Derwin James. It just seemed like it was one of those.
And it was a weird deal because if you remember when it happened, they had scored early, but then we had rebounded and hit a nice drive, and it was 14-10. Remember in the second quarter, we hit Auden Tate on about an 18-yard touchdown. It was 14-10 with about 10 minutes. And I knew they would be pumped up because they had played two teams that were lesser teams, and they had all, and that was their big game, and that's been they had us up there. If you remember a couple years ago, Muhammad Ali was there, and that whole night, and it was a big deal to beat us, and we were able to come out there in a heck of a game with them, and that was a big game for the league, and I knew they'd be juiced. And then when we recovered from I always say the onslaught, we matched their energy, and then played really well. And got to 14-10. And the next drive, if you remember, there was a 3rd and 8 that we had a ball tipped. We had a guy covered. Something crazy happened. I don't remember what it was. And they were able to pick up a 3rd down and got it. And then all of a sudden, we had a missed assignment and turned the wrong way and knocked the ball out of our hands, if you remember right. That's all it was. We had scored 2 drives in a row. It was 14-10. And then they got a 3rd down conversion somehow on a play that we should have had. And then they scored. And then the next play, I think we opened the wrong way and on a fake. And the ball hit the back, and they fumbled, and they got it back and scored. Man, and all of a sudden it just snowballed, and it was. And then it came special teams, and they fed off of it, and they were prepared and did a great job. But they were ready to play, and I thought we had weathered that storm. And then we were just too young to handle it at that time, and it was a shame because they got an onslaught, and it shouldn't have been nothing like it was. Because then then we punted bad. Remember, we hit a bad punt in the middle of the field real short, and they hit it on the run, returned 2 big punts in that game. I mean, they did a great. They hit us in all phases.
Now, I agree with you in that it's similar to the Oregon game in that Florida State had a lot of bad turnover luck. Balls got coughed on the ground. It was not a good day for Dalvin Cook. That's another thing that's kind of a mirror image there. And they were able to take advantage and snowball. But I disagree with you in that when you look at the box score of that Oregon game, you saw a game that was way, way, way closer than that final score was. Florida State was able to put up yards. They were able to move the ball. It's just every time that they were in the red zone, it didn't go so well. You look at that Louisville game, DeAndre Francois threw for 101 yards. Jacquez Patrick was your leading rusher with 79 yards. Travis Rudolph, your leading receiver with 2 receptions and 40 yards. It was a game that intensity-wise, Florida State was outclassed in just about every single way. And I think it was one of those times where Florida State had lived dangerously for so long in 2014 and 2015 and the Ole Miss game to start 2016 that a little bit of the mojo got lost that day, and that they finally met a team that was way too intense for them, who was finally getting their big debut in front of the nation. Louisville had been steady bodying teams before they played Florida State that year, and they finally had a chance to show people how good they were. College game day was there. It was a noon kick, but it was still, you were there. I mean, what was that atmosphere like?
Like you said, they were really jacked up to play that game. The fan base was really confident. I know their players were confident. I know everybody on game day picked them. And it's exactly like Jimbo said, and that's why I bring up the Oregon game, because that first half was much closer. And like I said, it happened quicker. But that first half was close. It was a good first half, and then all of a sudden you're down 35-10, and you say, what the hell just happened? And it happened so quick. It's funny that Jimbo brought up that same third down, because I really feel like that was a turning point in the game, because it was 14-10. They had a long third down. You had them stopped, and like he said, something happened, tip ball, missed tackles, something like that, and they end up going down to score to make it 21-10, and then there's that fumble with Dalvin and Francois, and all of a sudden the energy in that stadium, it was kicked up a whole nother notch. I know it was an early game, but it was, they were ready to go. They were juiced up. They had been waiting for that for a long time, it felt like. And as you heard Petrino say, I'm pretty sure that they prepared for us the entire offseason. So I think that was kind of a perfect storm of events that happened. And not to mention, in the second half, it was just, I think you had one drive where you gave it a shot, and then, like you said, the punt and then more turnovers and this and that. It just snowballed. It was what it was.
And it's interesting, you mentioned Louisville even admitted that they basically just planned the whole offseason for Florida State. And it makes me wonder, with the way things are going right now for Louisville, especially after that loss to Boston College, I think part of it's just Louisville's defense is terrible. But it also makes me wonder, did Louisville spend most of last week thinking they were going to get that W and spend some time preparing for Florida State?
If they did, that was clearly a mistake. So.
Yes, it was. But I will say this, because our own Ira Schafel wrote this column. Well, it's not a column. It's an article on warchant.com about Florida State's mindset going into this game. And as a matter of fact, Jimbo Fisher actually said something else he was asked about revenge yesterday. And how much does it matter to this Florida State team? How much does it mean for this Florida State team? I was going to hold this off till next segment, but I think it's relevant to what we have right now. And so a lot of these guys, they were on that team. This loss is still on their minds. Jimbo Fisher got asked, what do you do? Is this game personal for any of these guys?
Jimbo, obviously, with what happened at Louisville last year, is this the game that your team and your coaching staff is taking personally?
No. That game's over with. It's a different team, different place. You know what they're capable of. You know that guy that has the ball. That guy's the most dynamic player in college football. Because when you do everything right, you can't get him sometimes. And they're well coached. They do a great job. But you don't take any of that person. If you take a person, then it gets in your head. Then you can't play. You make bad decisions. You got to play the game with the team you have right now, with the team they have, and you play the game to compete. They had a great game. They got us. Okay? Let's line up and play this week, this year. Look at the mistakes we made. Look at the things we do. See what they do, and apply it to our team and play.
I know it's the answer he has to give, but my coach speak senses are tingling. Especially when literally minutes after that, when he's done, the players come out. We got a quote from Levante Taylor, quote, "We're taking this game very personal because of what happened last year." How do you not?
Yeah, that's, again, like you brought up, he's saying what he's got to say. I guarantee you in the locker room, this has a very personal undertone to it. I guarantee you in practice this week, same crap. They got embarrassed last year. Let's face it. You were the number 2 team in the nation. You got blown out by they were a top 10 team at the time, but I don't think anybody had really bought into Louisville quite yet, because as Jimbo said, they had played 2 lesser teams. So that was kind of their test. And a lot of people thought that FSU was going to go in there and solidify themselves as a national title contender. And it was the exact opposite. So, the game is very personal. And if you say it's not, then you're just giving the candy-coated answer that you have to, which is, it's his job. So you understand it. But, yeah, it's definitely personal.
And I'm anxious to see how the offense in particular responds to this game. 530 yards to 284. I think the defense knows it's got to stop Lamar Jackson. It's not rocket science how to beat Louisville, especially this year when they don't have quite as many options as they seemed to have a year ago. Before this offense, 284 yards against a defense that later we found out was pretty porous and not very good. As a matter of fact, Louisville will end up parting ways with their defense coordinator, Todd Grantham, at the end of that season. You kind of have to take a long, hard look in the mirror and you say, what do we got to do to be better? And of course, Doak Campbell Stadium, and maybe playing a far less turnover-ridden game will help a lot. But I feel like this is another week where Florida State's offense has to answer the call, and they don't just have to do it statistically like they did it against Duke. They got to score. They got to get points in the end zone. Because I got to tell you, that other guy, you know what? Yeah, there's not as many pieces on Louisville's offense this year. Yeah, that offensive line is a sieve. He's still a reigning Heisman Trophy winner, and he's still going to get his.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's the thing that worries you a little bit about this game, because at the end of the day, Lamar's going to put up his numbers. He's going to do what he does. It is what it is. But I will say something, I agree with you that a big aspect of this game is going to be on our offense to score and put up points. But I got to say, I think that one of the biggest things you saw, and I think a lot of us underestimated it maybe just in a week-by-week basis last year, is that you didn't have Derwin James, especially for the first week after that injury, and it showed. I mean, the calls, and not to say, listen, Westbrook, he was okay at the beginning of last year, but he got much, much better throughout the year.
He had a big learning experience throughout that season.
Right, and that game in particular was the stamp of where you can say was the beginning of that learning experience, because, man, it's not his fault. Lamar Jackson's a really good player. He makes a lot of good players look bad. But I will say, this is a game where Derwin James is going to have to take over defensively for Florida State and really put a damper on what Lamar is able to do. And I think you saw that he was able to do that 2 years ago in Doak, and I think he'll be able to do it again. I think by no means will that offense get off like they did in Louisville last year. But again, like you said, they're going to get theirs. They're a really good offense. I know their defense isn't very good, but is Florida State going to be able to put up enough points to win? That I don't know. I really, this would be a game for me where, I would say it's tough to call because you really don't know exactly what you're going to get.
Fair enough. I will say this. The good news for Florida State is in the 17 games played in this series, Florida State has never lost to Doak Campbell Stadium. As a matter of fact, Florida State leads this series 14-3. But atmosphere-wise, I mean, you've seen Twitter. You're on it just as much as I am. You've seen how many folks are saying, yeah, Sleepy Nooner, team that's 2-3, no thanks. I mean, there are people with that mindset, and they're, you can argue the virtue of that later. That's a whole nother segment for a whole nother day. But the idea is, how many people are going to be at this game, and what's that atmosphere going to be like in a Sleepy Nooner? Because usually, if you're playing a game like this against the Heisman Trophy winner, you can maybe have a little bit of a crowd to feed off. You can have that on your side, much like Louisville had a year ago. I just want to know, how intimidating is Doak Campbell Stadium going to be on Saturday? Because we know Florida State sometimes likes to match the intensity of that crowd, and if that's a little flat, are they a little flat?
Yeah, I think the crowd will still be there. They might show up a little late. That wouldn't shock me if by kickoff you look around and you say, oh, where the hell is everybody? But I still think, I think it'll be a decent enough crowd. It's still Louisville. It's still Lamar Jackson. It's a noon game, but all of your games really have been noon games outside the Miami and Bama game. So I think people at this point are used to it. I don't know. And I get that maybe it's not going to be as intense as the Miami game, but I have a tough time believing that people aren't going to show back up. I mean, you got the win on the road last week. It looks like things are moving in the right direction. Blackman's looking good. He's showing flashes. Jaquez is running hard. Cam's running hard. You got a lot of young pieces. There's things to be excited about with this football team. So, I mean, I sure hope the crowd shows up.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out a lot of things on Saturday, including what does this team have left in the tank? What does this team feel like it has left to fight for outside of just a bowl game? Does this team have the pride, and does it have what it needs to do to hang against one of the best offensive players in college football? Ladies and gentlemen, hockey, football, baseball, it all happened last night. We got to get you caught up. This is why you were sleeping.
Hello. Good morning. Wake up. Wake up. Wake me up. Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
Before we get to those scores, though, some college football news from last night, of course. Bill Moos, who you may not know that name, but he was the athletic director at Washington State. He plans on heading to Nebraska for that AD job, and a lot of speculation came out that Mike Leach would be following Bill Moos over to the Sea of Red. However, Mike Leach confirmed yesterday that he has no plans to follow his athletic director to Lincoln, Nebraska. Quote, "I wish Bill the best, and we just move forward." Of course, Washington State coming off that butt-kicking to Cal on Friday night. In the National Football League, the Tennessee Titans end up with a comfortable win over the Indianapolis Colts, but it wasn't always that way. It was a nice back-and-forth game. Unfortunately for the Colts, though, Captain Caveman is still on the sideline, and you don't really have much of a shot when Marcus Mariota's healthy and you're trotting out Jacoby Brissett. We're screwed in that division, aren't we? Because Tennessee, I mean, despite having Mike Mularkey as a head coach, is physical enough and has the quarterback.
I mean, let's be honest. With Jacksonville, you had your high hopes, but the more you watch the football team, the more you realize when that defense isn't able to put up points, you're going to struggle because sooner or later people are just going to put 8 and 9 people in the box. They're going to be able to stop Fournette. It's not like you have the best offensive line in the league. Bortles isn't just going to be able to win you football games. So I would say yes. I would say the Jags are in a tad bit of trouble. I'm not willing to give it away yet, but if I was a betting man, I wouldn't feel very good about picking Jacksonville to win that division.
I'm just in a bad mood because when they're 8 or 9 in the box, the quarterback should be able to make plays if he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, which means he's supposed to be one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the world. But sure, whatever. All right, baseball. The Yankees with their backs against the wall in the Bronx. 8-1 over the Houston Astros. Do the Yankees still have life in this series, or is this just one of those kind of last gasp, win one of those games at home type deals?
Now, I think the Yankees have life. I think they have a chance, but, I mean, to be honest with you, Houston's just the better team. I fully expect Houston to go on to win the series, but that was a must-win for the Yankees last night. They played in their little bandbox, got a couple of gimme home runs, Todd Frazier. It's unbelievable to me the bad swings that are put on a baseball that go out of that park. As a Mets fan, it's infuriating.
However, with the power that Houston hits for, you think it would also be an advantage for Houston.
Right. I think that's been the most surprising thing to me, and that's what I thought going into the game last night is, that the Yankees really lost those 2 games that they have to win. If it's low scoring, the Yankees have to win. And Houston just hasn't been able to put up runs in this series yet, which is a little surprising to me. But sooner or later, I feel as though those bats are going to explode, and I think when that happens, I think it'll all but be over.
There's only one game in the National Hockey League last night, and that involved a local team. It was the Bolts over the Red Wings, 3-2. Don't look now, Tampa's 5-1 on the season and has 10 points through 6 games. When we come back, we're breaking down a little bit more of what Jimbo Fisher had to say with some duly quoted on Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Yes, Florida State just landed a 5-star commitment.
I don't see that anywhere online. How did you get that news so fast?
I'm on the new warchant.com app. I get news updates and scores pushed to my phone instantly.
How much does it cost?
It's free. Just go to iTunes or the Google Play Store, type in Warchant, and install it on your phone. That's it.
A free app that keeps me constantly up to date on Florida State sports and recruiting? Wow, that makes it incredibly easy to follow my Seminoles and never miss out.
With the app, you'll also get quick access to all the stories and features on Warchant, including the ever-popular message boards that feature thousands of fans talking about the Noles.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Rolling right along on a Tuesday edition of Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Ryan Kelly and Drew Hicken here with you. As always, we're brought to you by our friends at Ford the Table. All right, I told you last segment, and we ended up playing about half of it last segment, but I think it's all going to work out for the best. Here's where we like to break down what we get from Jimbo Fisher's press conference every week. Separate the coach speak from the real talk. This is duly quoted.
Quote mode. We have ways of making talk. You talking to me? Okay. You know I talk to end quote mode.
Okay, so, the podcast version of the show, if you want to listen to all of Jimbo Fisher, we put that at the end of the episode. So if you're interested in that in just audio form, maybe you don't want to go to YouTube, maybe you don't want to find the video from us or the one from Florida State or whatever, you can go to our podcast and you can just skip past to probably about the 44, 45-minute mark of our podcast on Tuesday's show, and it will always be there. All right, so Jimbo Fisher did talk about a couple different things inside this game, and first of all, he talked about somebody who's been off-criticized in the show, somebody who, let's just say I like to take the under a lot on in our over-under picks every single week, and that's Logan Tyler. And I think what he says about Logan Tyler opens up a bigger conversation as a whole about one of the things that's really kept Florida State afloat in a couple of these games. So here's Jimbo Fisher yesterday chit-chatting about Logan Tyler.
Jimbo, how important is what Logan Tyler has been able to do over the last couple of weeks? He had a 60-yarder the other day.
Again, we've looked hard, made live looks. I mean, made it go at it. We've changed some. He's worked on some technique things and just really grinding. I said he had been hitting the ball like that during spring and in most of camp, and then had that one bad game, the first one, when sometimes you get nervous, but now he's relaxed, and you can see the talent level in which I love on him, because I mean he has a game-changing leg. In other words, I mean what I'm saying is can change field position so easily with one kick, and when you do that, man, it's huge.
So we talked about Logan Tyler a little on Monday and how he's really stepped it up, but I think the special teams unit as a whole, outside of one glaring exception, and we'll talk about that as well, has really stepped up in this game. And there was so much talk about the wide receivers have to step up. Cam Akers has to be a guy sooner rather than later. Jacquez Patrick has to step up. So much talk about the offense stepping up. But here's the thing. No matter how good your skill players are, you are still being quarterbacked by a true freshman. There are drives where it's just not going to work. It's just not going to look right. Things just aren't going to run smoothly. No matter how good your skill players are, you need someone to get points when you're in the red zone, and you need someone to flip the field when you're not. Florida State has had those two guys in Ricky Aguayo and Logan Tyler after having that disastrous game against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And it's funny, because, butterfly effect. If Florida State makes that field goal at the end of that first half and has that lead, maybe Florida State plays that second half differently. And maybe DeAndre Francois doesn't go down on that play. Of course, on the other end, look at it this way. You also have needed those guys so much over these last couple weeks because of that Francois injury. We don't know if that's what would have happened or what wouldn't. But we do know that Florida State has been in dire need of step up from their special teams play. And over the last couple of weeks, they've gotten it in spades. Logan Tyler's looked really good. Ricky Aguayo has looked really good. Overall solid performances from two guys that you needed them from. I will say this, though. Return game, still a little suspect.
Not really the return game for me. It's the punt return game.
Tavares McFadden. Let's just call it by its name. Tavares McFadden has looked really, really bad in punt return.
But my guess is that for whatever reason, because Jimbo's not willing to make a move there, I wonder if that's just what he wants. It's just a guy who's reliable to go back there and catch. It makes me wonder the guys behind him, if they can really consistently field punts. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to take a guy who once out of every 10 times takes one, not every 10, that's absurd, but once every while takes one to the house but drops a couple everyone, you're not gonna play him. You're just not gonna feel comfortable. So my guess is that Tavares is somehow the most sure-handed guy in punt return. But I mean, the kid just fair catches every single one. There's plenty of times where he's got room to run and he doesn't. And then if he does to actually take it, he just dances around for about 2 yards. I don't know. But honestly, though, the kickoff return has definitely shown its flashes. You saw it against Wake. You could argue without that kick return by Keith Gavin, we might have been we were in trouble against Wake. But I don't know if that game has the same outcome. And Durbin obviously had that one with the bull block in the back that was whatever. But the kick return at least has shown me some flashes. The punt return has done nothing of the sort.
And I think it's kind of funny that as soon as Greg Reed left Florida State, when Rashad Green started returning punts for Florida State in 2012, the first one he returns in the 2012, I believe I'm pretty sure it's the 2012 season, he houses. And then after that, it was kind of an adventure of will he or won't he catch it? And I feel like it's kind of been that way for Florida State since then. Florida State hasn't had an elite punt returner since Greg Reed. And I think it is because Jimbo Fisher, after getting burned a couple times in that 2012 season, has since then just coveted having good hands, just coveted having catch the ball, even if sometimes Tavares McFadden doesn't catch the ball, and that can be a problem.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because, like we've talked about, the hidden yards in these football games is so big for a team like Florida State, where you really, week to week, you just don't really know what offense is going to show up. Is it going to be the fourth quarter offense against Miami or what? So it's tough to say, but it would be huge to have a guy back there who could make a difference and at least give you an extra 10, 20 yards on some punt returns rather than just, fair catch everything. I think it would be huge for the team. But, I mean, you've even seen, people scream for Derwin and this and that. Derwin drops just about every kickoff that he gets, and then he picks it up and somehow runs for 50 yards because he's a freak. But, I mean, I don't think Derwin, and that's no knock on anyone, by the way, because I don't know if anyone knows. Returning a punt is extremely difficult. It's not easy, but, you'd figure at a school like Florida State, you'd have some guys who could do it. I think that's the most surprising thing to me. And people have talked about Levante quite a bit, but I think that's the thing that we were just talking about. I feel like Levante just must not be very sure-handed back there because I guarantee you he can make something happen. You saw him do it in high school quite a bit. I know Tavares did too, but I guess just they don't have any other guys back there that they can trust.
So that's a unit worthy of praise and worthy of talking about. But there's one unit on the field that whenever they do something good, you're often kind of quiet about them, and that's a good thing, and that's the offensive line. And Florida State had a decent performance out of its offensive line this weekend. Jimbo Fisher had something to say about that as well.
Jimbo, with Dickerson being out, starting Kelly there and then put Ball out at tackle, how did those two guys do it?
I thought Kelly had a good, solid game. I mean, he played well. Ball had some youth mistakes at times on his sets. Got to set a little tighter, a little more vertical, but just anxious, getting out wide, but blocked well. Didn't have any penalties. Got lined up, blocked for one twist guy came off on him, but for the most part, played a very solid football game for his first start.
Florida State, injury. Ball has to come in. Dickerson out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was a great game because I don't think you're going to get a ton of great games out of Florida State's offensive line. But here's the thing. Offensive line was a non-factor for most of that game. That's a good thing. Always a good thing. When I'm not hearing about, well, this guy blew this, and this guy blew this, and this guy blew this, and this guy blew this, and, Kelly held here, and Rick Leonard held here. Rick Leonard did have a couple plays that you raised an eyebrow at, and penalty-wise, but overall, nothing glaring where somebody's just getting whipped every single play. They all got beat on an occasion, but I think that also has to do with Florida State is also leveling out the talent on a front seven that they've got to play. And that's no offense to Duke. They're not a bad defensive line, but they're not quite the level that Florida State's had to play throughout the first half of the season.
Right. I mean, they were in a terrible run defensive team, but, to be honest with you, just watching it on television, if you look at the size difference between the lines, it's a game that I feel, a good offensive line would have dominated Duke up front. And, like you said, it wasn't really a factor. There was a couple of times where Blackman got killed, but at the end of the day, with this offensive line in particular, you have to take what you're going to get.
And he's also got to get rid of the ball.
He does. I tend to agree. But again, he's an 18-year-old quarterback, been on campus for 3 months. We've said it till we're blue in the face. Stuff like that's going to happen with him. It'd be nice if somebody had his back a little bit more. But again, those are things that are going to happen. One, it's football. And two, like you said, you just know what you're going to get with this offensive line group, especially when it continues to be hindered with injuries. It's not going to help. So all things considered, I agree. The offensive line performed, pretty good on Saturday. You were still able to run the ball rather well. So I think that's been the big change in this offense is when you're able to run the football and roll James Blackman out a little bit and give him some time, let him see the field a little bit. I think it makes a big difference.
And I think if you're Florida State, you can probably look forward to seeing more games like that as we roll along, as Syracuse and Delaware State and Florida are still on the way. Now, against Boston College, not sure. Against Clemson, not sure. But I do know those other games defensively, maybe not as rough of front sevens as what you've seen throughout the early part of this season. And finally, switching gears back to Louisville, of course, Jimbo Fisher got asked about Lamar Jackson. He got asked actually a lot about Lamar Jackson, but this was my favorite quote about him from yesterday.
Have you ever coached against anyone quite like Lamar Jackson? What does he do that's so unique?
The athlete, I mean, the complete ability to read and throw down the field and create long plays, throw it short, and then the complete ability not just to run or run over you, but I mean, you can't get your hands on. I mean, and as I say, my term I like to say he's deer-like. You know what I mean? That fast twitch, it can just jump sideways. You know, like I tell him, I ain't never seen a deer be slow. I ain't never seen a deer need stretched. Whatever it needs to do, it just takes off and jumps, runs, does whatever. And that's kind of like he does. I mean, he's right there. All of a sudden, you'll have him, and he has an instinct to move in a certain area, and you got three guys around him, and all of a sudden they don't touch him. I mean, you know, there's unique players like that. And he, tell you what he is too, he's really tough and competitive. If you really watch that film, he's an excellent competitor and a very tough guy too.
I know there haven't been any quarterbacks quite like him. Have you ever coached a receiver or a skill position player that's
Yeah, I've had some skill guys that are in that mold, that are that fast or could be a little faster or twitchy like that, but they don't touch the ball every play and weren't able to throw it and make the decisions he does and all that. I mean, I guess you have to say a Michael Vick type guy. I mean, he's like Vick was back in the day. I remember all of those great teams in that national championship game. I remember all that whole defense they had there. There was a ton of first-round guys that couldn't touch him. I mean, if I remember, Virginia Tech was winning going in the fourth quarter. And a lot of it had to do with him just trying to get him on the ground. And none against nobody. I mean, he's just one of those types of special athletes that comes around every so often.
I think that's an absolutely perfect analogy. Listen, maybe some parts of Michael Vick and him are different, but I think where that analogy goes very, very well is when you go back to that 99 game and when you go back to a couple big games that Virginia Tech played in the Michael Vick era, it was literally Michael Vick versus a team of 22 people. He was so special in the late 90s that there were just games where even if his team wasn't going well, he made stuff happen. And I think that's what you're kind of seeing with Lamar Jackson this season. Even though the team around him isn't very well, he makes stuff happen because he's just that dang good. Yeah,
he's definitely by far the closest thing to Michael Vick since Michael Vick. I mean, the plays that the kid can make, and you know, I would say that Michael Vick probably had a little bit more arm talent than Lamar, but Lamar has been a better passer of late. I think he might even have better passing numbers in college than Michael Vick had. Now, I don't think Lamar will have the type of career that Michael Vick had, at least early on in his NFL career. I'm really interested to see. I really have no idea how Lamar will play out in the NFL. I think that's something I'm really intrigued about looking forward, because I know especially a lot of Jags fans bring his name up a lot, and I don't even, off the top of my head, I think he's like a second or third round guy, but I'm really curious to see, as the draft process goes on and guys who are obviously way more in tune to that than I am, where they kind of slot him and what his future it looks like that in there, because he's 6'3", he's a tall kid. If he continues to put on weight, I guess I don't see why he couldn't have a good career in the NFL.
16 touchdowns to 5 picks this year, a passer rating of 151.3. We're halfway through the season. He's already thrown for 2,300 yards. Those are impressive numbers. And that's just his passing numbers. Of course, we know what he can do on the ground. We know how dangerous he can be. And the wins aren't impressive. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what they are. Purdue, it's so funny that we ended up making fun of Louisville at the beginning of the season, saying, how on earth do you escape Purdue, when Purdue is by far the most impressive win that Louisville has. North Carolina is garbage. Kent State is Kent State. The Murray State Racers are the Murray State Racers. Boston College, Clemson, NC State, all 3 L's. And don't get me wrong, conference-wise, when you got to open with Clemson and BC, it's not easy. But you should have at least one of these wins. And you certainly shouldn't have that loss to Boston College. Of course, I don't know if you saw, but I ended up making a GIF of the moment in Jimbo Fisher's press conference when he found out that Boston College was beating Louisville. And I think he had the same reaction we just about all had of, wait, what? Really?
And Boston College was up, I think, by 2 scores late in that game. And I think I remember seeing that and going, oh, my God. But, it's just kind of crazy to me that in the Lamar Jackson era, Louisville is just going to have, at the end of the day, they're just not going to have anything to show for it other than the the awesome numbers that he put up, and maybe a first half of the season run at a national title because they imploded last year. They're not gonna, Michael Vick and them. They obviously went to the national title games and whatnot, but Louisville just the kid's too good for them to be like this. Is my point.
Let me just say this: if Boston College can put up 31 points in the second half on Louisville's defense, you should have a nice day where you can finally punch the ball into the end zone. More after this. It's Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
You get a shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park, but meantime, no sleep till...
I think it's funny that here we are halfway through the college football season, and we really don't have a legitimate front runner in my mind for the Heisman Trophy. Baker Mayfield looked okay, but it's an Oklahoma quarterback who puts up numbers in a system. Bryce Love at Stanford is the closest that I can think of to this. I mean, my guy's averaging almost 200 rushing yards a game, 198, 33 rushes of 10 yards or more. 500 yards just about after contact, 744 before contact. I mean, this guy's gone great. And here's the thing. Saquon Barkley's also a freak, but Penn State ain't played nobody, Paul.
Yeah, I think Saquon's a guy who over the next couple weeks is either going to really solidify his Heisman hopes or it's going to be completely dashed.
Well, as goes he, as goes Penn State. It's that simple because, well, you take a look at Penn State's remaining schedule compared to what Penn State's had to play. We are about to get a 3-week stretch to see if Penn State is for real, because they host Michigan on a night game, 7:30 this week. Then they're going to the Horseshoe the week after that, and then they're visiting a decent Sparty team the week after that. So they've got 2 of their next 3 on the road against arguably the 3 best teams in the Big Ten, not named Penn State. We're putting a bow on it after this, folks. It's Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio. Put a bow on it here on Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio, and I am super excited because next day or so, I'm getting FIFA in on the Nintendo Switch. The idea of being able to take FIFA anywhere is a really cool idea. I know we have I know at one point, I hope he still listens, we had a producer who works on Madden who used to listen to the show and sometimes chat with us. And if you're listening, buddy, Madden on the Switch, my friend. Sounds like a good idea to me.
What is a Nintendo Switch?
It's the portable Nintendo system. It's that thing that,
So it's a Game Boy?
Well, you can plug it in, too. It plugs into the TV, too.
Oh.
Like, it's a console that also works as a portable. It's a cool idea. Anyway, I'm excited. Lots of fun. Overall, you had to pick a Heisman Trophy winner right now, Drew. Continue our conversation. Who you take?
I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe you mean like if the season was over today and just based off of what everyone's done?
Say you're a Heisman voter. You're putting in that vote.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I really don't. I guess I would defer to Saquon just because he's so good, but he hasn't really done enough to win, so I have no idea.
Here's my take. He's not who I'd vote for. Baker Mayfield's going to win the Heisman. He's been that guy that they've tried to give it to so long, and they can't. They're going to give it to him. My thanks to you, Drew.
Thank you.
Thanks to you guys for listening. Mike and Mike's up next, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
All right, after evaluating the film from Duke, as we look at our team, starting to get closer to the team to which we thought we could be and getting better, and envisioned that the things that where we're getting to offensively, developed much more of an identity, ran the football extremely well in the game. Duke was 7th in the country, I believe, going in against the run, and we knew which one to establish the run. I thought both our backs ran really well. Our offensive line, for the most part, blocked on the run really, really well. I think on third down, they were, second in the country in giving up third downs, under 25%. We had one of our best days getting better on third down, establishing. We established right out of the gate with a good drive, getting James off to a good start and the team off to a good start. And the first drive, actually first 2 drives, we had 3 drives of over 83 yards, 4 with 10 plays or more. But at the same time, we have to finish more. It should have been 34, 37 points on the board, somewhere 31, 34, 35, somewhere in that range. And then a shortened game, because you only had it really, there's 8 possessions. In that regard. So it's more like a pro game because their possessions were long and our possessions were long. But at the same time, you got to finish better. We had a couple untimely penalties, a couple holding calls, and they said 2 guys on the ball. They hurt us in a couple situations. Need to finish on a big play a little better. Could have gotten the end zone one time, but then missed a block down there the first drive of the second half. Started the first half very well, started the second half very well with long drives, getting control of the game. Had missed 1 block on those drives that set us behind. But at the same time, defensively, played very well for the most part. Gave up a couple 3rd and longs. One time on the 3rd and 17, we lost contain. Got everybody covered down. Got a loop stunt, just completely lost contain. Got him. He gets outside, and in the scramble rules, and they make a throw down the field. We can't let that happen. They gave up 1 drive, but our defense did a great job, I thought, on the second interception. We were throwing it away, and he got hit. Did it on sudden change when the game was tied. They did a great job, and then they punted it to us, and we did a heck of a job with a 90-some yard drive coming right back to win it. 2 big third downs. James again grew up, made big plays when he had to. Stood in there, took a couple hits when he had to, but you have to on 3rd and long. Thought Logan Tyler was outstanding on the day, punting the football. Thought he was a game changer in the deal and the way he did those things. Again, Ricky had a nice solid day and then had a short field goal in his PATs. But we're keep being consistent in the kicking game, doing a good job in that regard and getting better. Again, we're getting much closer. Still a lot of things to work on. You can put more points on the board. Had a big play on defense, too, on the turnover. I thought when they on the trick play, we got back there. Excellent hustle by Emmett Rice breaking out of the stack. We got the ball tipped and up in the air. But, again, winning on the road, getting a nice win on the road, 6 wins on the road, and getting better. But a lot more efficiency when you grade the film. You go back and you have corrections and mistakes. Not half as many. But you still, it's got to equate into points, and we've got to translate that, and that's the next step, and I think we're heading in the right direction. Questions?
We have the microphone. Jimbo, you mentioned the efficiency being better, and that needs to translate to points. I guess what are things that you guys can do better to start?
Well, just like I said, you had 2 penalties. You had a 1st and 10 on the 20, got a penalty on a holding call. Had 2 guys on the ball, which I ain't going to touch that. We're down there to get points, and I can look at the film and see. And then we're running out the clock at the end. Have a 30-yard gain to go across the 50, and we get that. I mean, it basically come down to a couple penalties. And then one bad decision by James. 3rd down, he should just go ahead and checked it down, took the field goal, and got up 10-0 after the holding call, and that's about it. It's that simple. I mean, it's that simple in what we got to do.
I know you said you didn't want to touch on it, but what was the call? What did they say happened? It seems like you don't think that happened.
Well, they said a guy was covered up. We had an illegal guy downfield. One guy's a yard off the ball, another guy's over a yard and a half off the ball.
Gotcha. So, I mean, with those plays, though, I don't know, you don't like to use the word frustrating, but it did seem in that game like you guys were close. Like you 35, 38 points.
That's what I'm saying. It's there. I mean, but you have to still go do that. It's not close and good enough. But the reason why the things are happening, they can see it, their vision to come off, the consistency in drives. 3rd downs, we were 6 of 13. We were much better. Picked up 3rd and long, picked up 3rd and short, broke a 3rd and short for a big one. Should have broke another one. If the receiver releases outside and runs off, on the other one, the other 3rd and short that he popped out probably scores. The first drive of the second half. And Nooney getting used to the ball more. Not the ball he gets on that side of the field, he's got to put in the end zone. And that's not that I'm Chris, but we hadn't gotten him in the offense a lot. He hadn't had a lot of plays. When he gets to running and playing, you'll never get him on the ground in that. He was just so happy to get the ball out in space like that. It hadn't happened for him for a while. You know what I mean? That's not a criticism of him. Just as we get this thing going, but we're getting very close. And you hit those one or two little big plays, and you get that executed. And then like the first drive of the second half, we could have scored there. Then we have perfect plays, miss one block on a 2nd and 7. We have a guy wide open in the right corner of the end zone. We're going to him. The guy, when he's blocking inside, he slid off. I mean, he was down on the guy physical and just slid off, and the guy James that's where he got the sack. In that regard, I mean, just there's a few inches. We got to keep fighting for them, but the things are there, and we got to do a better job in coaching them and putting them in that position and there. But it's very close, and the efficiencies of running the football, the balance, runs, throws, mixing the ball around. Every receiver caught it, backs caught it, tight end caught it. Different backs running it. The fullback got involved, catching a couple passes in the game. Vickers done a great job blocking. Now you got him a couple. He had a big catch for 20-some yards in the game. And you're starting to see it evolve in that regard.
Jimbo,
we got to put points on the board.
Sorry, you held Duke to 10 points, but defensively, were you looking for more pressure up front, or was that the game plan?
We got pressure. Now, one thing they do, they get it out. Now, there's a couple times, though, 2 or 3 times I thought now Sweat had a big hit. Burns, he hit the quarterback 4 times. They batted. Tell you what, they did a good job of. They batted about 4 balls. They got penetration and got their arms up. I'd like to have a little more pressure. We got to get some more internal pressure a little bit. Sweat had a big sack in a 2-minute, and he got a big hit there one time on a 3rd down. It was 3rd and 5, and the guy hit it. Got hit just as he released it, and Burns did too. But we're interested in getting a couple more negative play sacks that way. We got to continue that. And what we're doing and cover down a little bit better in the middle, right there. Cover our linebackers a couple times on the draw. We got to read the draw when they lead it and go collapse it, which we did the second half. First half, that was what was getting us. They weren't reading the draw and collapsing it down, and then and play the pass coverage a little bit better.
Jimbo, how important is what Logan Tyler has been able to do over the last couple of weeks? He had a 60-yarder the other day.
Again, we've looked hard, made live looks. I mean, made it go at it. We've changed some. He's worked on some technique things and just really grinding. I said he had been hitting the ball like that during spring and in most of camp, and then had that one bad game, the first one, when sometimes you get nerves, but now he's relaxed, and you can see the talent level in which I love on him, because I mean he has a game-changing leg. In other words, I mean what I'm saying is can change field position so easily with one kick, and when you do that, man, it's huge.
Jimbo, obviously with what happened at Louisville last year, is this the game that your team and your coaching staff is taking personally?
No. That game's over with. It's a different team, different place. I mean, you know what they're capable of. You know that guy that has the ball, that guy's the most dynamic player in college football, because when you do everything right, you can't get him sometimes. I mean, and they're well coached. They do a great job. But you don't take any of that person. If you take a person, then you get in your head. Then you can't play. You make bad decisions. You got to play the game with the team you have right now, with the team they have, and you play the game to compete. They had a great game. They got us, okay? Let's line up and play this week, this year. Look at the mistakes we made. Look at the things we do. See what they do, and apply it to our team and play.
You guys have had a lot of success on the road recently. Do you attribute that success to anything specifically in your preparations?
I'll be honest, and as crazy as it sounds, you have less distractions for players. You get away. We leave on, by leaving on Thursday night, you get away. You get a great night's sleep. You get up, do academics all day get all your academics done until noon that day. I mean, we have the tutors, we have everybody with them. They get as much or more done then when you get to stay home because of the meetings and how you have to do things. So we do a great job there. You kind of sequester yourself together, and you know why you're there. You're not out. No friends, people bothering you. And now I love playing. I'd rather play here in Doak Cam with all these fans and that loud noise and all that good stuff. But at the same time, it does bring you together, and your mindset and how you do things is huge. It really is.
Jimbo, with Dickerson being out, starting Kelly there and then put Ball out at tackle, how did those two guys do at this?
I thought Kelly had a good, solid game. I mean, he played well. Ball had some youth mistakes at times on his sets. Got to set a little tighter, a little more vertical, but just anxious, getting out wide, but blocked well. Didn't have any penalties. Got lined up, blocked one twist guy came off on him, but for the most part, played a very solid football game for his first start. He got a chance to be a really good player as he keeps developing. He's athletic and long.
Have you ever coached against anyone quite like Lamar Jackson? What does he do that's so unique?
The athletic. I mean, the complete ability to read and throw down the field and create long plays, throw it short, and then the complete ability not just to run or run over you, but I mean you can't get your hands on. I mean, and as I say, my term I like to say he's deer-like. That fast twitch. It can just jump sideways. Like I tell him, I ain't never seen a deer be slow. I ain't never seen a deer need stretched. Whatever it needs to do, it just takes off and jumps, runs, does whatever. And that's kind of like he does. I mean, he's right there. All of a sudden, you'll have him, and he can. he has an instinct to move in a certain area, and you got three guys around him, and all of a sudden they don't touch him. I mean, there's unique players like that. And then tell you what he is, too. He's really tough and competitive. If you really watch that film, he's an excellent competitor and a very tough guy, too.
I know there haven't been any quarterbacks quite like him. Have you ever coached a receiver or a skill position player that's
Yeah, I've had some skill guys that are in that mold, that are that fast or could be a little faster or twitchy like that, but they don't touch the ball every play and weren't able to throw it and make the decisions he does and all that. I mean, I guess you have to say a Michael Vick type guy. I mean, he's like Vick was back in the day. I remember all of his great teams in that national championship game. I remember all that whole defense they had there. There was a ton of first-round guys that couldn't touch him. I mean, if I remember, Virginia Tech was winning going in the fourth quarter. And a lot of it had to do with him just trying to get him on the ground. And nothing against nobody. I mean, he's just one of those types of special athletes that comes around every so often.
All right, we'll go to the phone for Chris.
Hey, Jimbo, how you doing?
All right, Chris, how are you, buddy?
Doing great. Talk about Louisville's defensive line, because I know last year when we played against them in Louisville, they kind of gave Francois a run for his money all day because they kept coming in different corners. Is that one thing we have to work on this week to protect the quarterback of Louisville?
Oh, we're going to have to. We're going to have to. Now, James Hearns goes right here in Lincoln from right here in Tallahassee, does an excellent job on the end. Big, rangy, athletic, stands up, gets down, can rush, does a great. And Trevon Young, the other guy, athletic, long guys, man, that can rush and bend the edge. Inside with Richardson, Bailey. All those guys, Robinson. I mean, those guys are all big physical guys, and they always got good players. And they're big. Their front guys are big and long, and look like our guys. I mean, they're athletic and a really good team, and play very physical. There's no doubt. And they put pressure, and like I say, Gennard leads them with 11.5 tackles for loss. He leads them in sacks with 5, number 58, and he's listed as a backup. So when that goes, you're in trouble. When your backup's got the most tackles for loss and he started versus BC, but in sacks, that's you're pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And I want to do a follow-up. Third downs, because I was looking at the stats from last year against Louisville. We were 2 for whatever. Is that something we got to work on better against this Louisville squad?
No, I want to stay there. No, I'm like, it's something we're working as a team, which we got better at, spent a lot of time on. And here's the thing on third down. I mean, first and second down have a lot to do with third down. We all get on third down conversion, but we had 3 third and shorts last week. We converted some 3rd and 5 and 6. Now we converted 2 big 3rd and 7 pluses on that last drive, and we're getting better in all those areas. But we got to make sure that we're in makeable situations. These guys can't just lay their ears back and kill us.
Thanks, Jimbo.
Thank you, buddy.
Jimbo, with Lamar Jackson, was there anything that you took away from last year as far as better how to contain him coming into this game?
Yeah, see if you can get 13 guys on the field. Get an extra guy underneath the end and come off. That'd be the best way to do it. You got to mix it. You can't give him the same looks. I mean, he's got to have different looks. But at the same time, you get yourself out of position, and we forget it's all Lamar, and all of a sudden you got good receivers, they got good backs, tight end, and Bobby knows how to use those guys. So they feed off of that, and they run the zone read, they run the counter with him, they run every run a back would run with an extra blocker. So that makes it extremely difficult on how to play him, and he can run like that.
Jimbo, did that game almost feel like an ambush at some point? Because you guys, nobody knew that Lamar would be quite what Lamar became. It was early in the season. You guys had just lost Derwin James. It just seemed like it was one of those.
And it was a weird deal because if you remember when it happened, they had scored early, but then we had rebounded and hit a nice drive, and it was 14-10. Remember in the second quarter, we hit Auden Tate on about an 18-yard touchdown. It was 14-10 with about 10 minutes. And I knew they would be pumped up because they had played 2 teams that were lesser teams, and they had all, and that was their big game. And that's been they had us up there. If you remember a couple years ago, Muhammad Ali was there, and that whole night, and it was a big deal to beat us, and we were able to come out there in a heck of a game with them. And that was a big game for the league. And I knew they'd be juiced. And then when we recovered from I always say the onslaught, you know what I mean? We matched their energy. And then played really well and got to 14-10. And the next drive, if you remember, there was a 3rd and 8 that we had a ball tipped, we had a guy covered. Something crazy happened. I don't remember what it was. And they were able to pick up a 3rd down and got it. And then all of a sudden, we had a missed assignment and turned the wrong way and knocked the ball out of our hands, if you remember right. That's all it was. We had scored 2 drives in a row. It was 14-10. And then they got a 3rd down conversion somehow on a play that we should have had. And then they scored, and then the next play, I think we opened the wrong way and on a fake, and the ball hit the back and they fumbled and they got it back and scored, man, and all of a sudden it just snowballed. And it was. And then it came special teams and they fed off of it and they were prepared and did a great job. But they were ready to play. And I thought we had weathered that storm. And then, we were just too young to handle it at that time. And it was a shame because they got an onslaught and it shouldn't have been nothing like it was. Because then we punted bad. Remember, we hit a bad punt in the middle of the field real short and they hit it on the run, returned 2 big punts in that game. I mean, they did they hit us in all phases.
Jimbo, you said it's 2 different teams, it's a different season, but you have a lot of kids that were on the field that day. Mm-hmm. How, as a coach, do you want them to remember what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, you remember what they're capable of. But no, I mean, that this can happen. No, I've got to go prepare and play. I mean, you see it every year. I was watching the other night. Somebody had played somebody and had an unbelievable game against them. Well, matter of fact, it might have been Lamar and him against NC State. I remember the game he had against NC State. And then NC State plays their tails off against him the other night. You got to remember what that guy's capable of. You always know. I mean, the fear that's like the famous heavyweight when you fought George Foreman. No matter if you beat George Foreman, you better know that right hand. If he catches you with it, you're going to knock you out. You know what I'm saying? And Lamar, whatever, you cannot let up any play, any section of anything they do because this guy, what he's capable of. But you got to go play, and it's a new year, new team, and do what you do.
Is that easier said than done with 20-year-old kids, though?
Sometimes it is. Sometimes
the emotion
it
of it?
Sometimes the youth of it makes it better. That the guys feel that, hey, all right, you got me that time. It's like at the park. You beat me 11-0. Okay, I'll come back and play, and I beat you this time. You know what I mean? But I'm going to compete against you. You know what I'm saying? Not saying we're going to win, but at that time, the youth can also be very helpful, just as much as it does. Because, young guys, when their pride gets hurt, they bounce back usually pretty good.
Jimbo, Jacquez obviously is running really well.
Really well.
How far has he come from when he was a freshman? Because it seemed like that was something you had to harp on a lot.
It was, and just learning who he was as a back, the type of back he is. Just like we're doing with Cam right now, the type of runs you got to make, and then we'll lead to big runs. But then if you really watch, the thing Jacquez is doing too, the pass blocking, the chipping, all the different things, and the route running, where he's got to be. There's so many things that go into the intricacies of an offense. We see the runs and that, but the timing, and like I always say this, well, I always say offense is so hard to be consistently good at times because of rhythm and timing. And he knows where to be on checkdowns, how to chip, where a guy's going to need help. He made a pickup the other day on that play that we hit Nooney on, that there was a twist inside. And I mean, it's an unbelievable twist. And we got picked, and the guy came around. Well, after the block, he's taught because of that look to check the A-gap before he goes out. He checks it. Here comes the guy free, hits the guy right in the mouth. We were able to stand up and throw that ball to Nooney and pick it up. I mean, it's things that people never see that made that play go on. It's not just the running and things. I mean, it's just all the little things that how you got to help out. It's like when you're helping your neighbor. Hey, I need a little help here with trimming this tree, and you don't do much, but you go over and just hold something, but it allows him the things to function. He's doing so many of those things. It's crazy. And what's good takes pride in it. Takes a lot of pride in it, and understands when you're young. And you're told you're the greatest, just give me the ball and I go score. You know what I'm saying? And all those guys understanding how to really play team football. And he's doing a great, and leading on the sideline, doing a really good job.
Jimbo, what does a guy like Derwin, what can he provide to help you guys defend Lamar Jackson?
Well, I mean, different looks, multiplicity of being, whether he's got to match up and cover somebody and let somebody else rush or blitz or play coverage or whatever it may be, or him himself on the edge getting a better athlete, in space on the guy and things like that. So, I mean, it is a multiplicity of where you can use him, whether you take something away, let somebody else do something, or allow him himself to do something. No, not a decoy. No, you ain't, because when you're covering somebody, you ain't a decoy. That ball can come to him. Well, you got to count for him, or you got to count for other guys too. But I mean, where how your matchup is, or how you think. All right, because maybe they, allow 2 guys an inside. Maybe it frees Noddy up because now he gets on the edge. He's out here. You got to play that now. Let's Noddy. I mean, or whatever it may be. It's not really. It's not to that extent. But I don't think. But his versatility can create a lot of problems.
Jimbo, following up on Jacquez, it seems like he also embraced Cam. There was so much hype about Cam, but he calls him his little brother. And how helpful has that been in terms of a leadership standpoint? You
know where that comes from, in my opinion? Devontae Freeman and James Wilder, Carlos Williams, Dalvin Cook. I mean, if you ever watched, remember when Freeman and Wilder used to run? You think they were twin brothers. And Carlos, those 3 guys on the side, 3-headed. I mean, all those guys, they were all highly regarded. When to make a play, they were more excited for the guy than they were for themselves. And then, they did that with Dalvin. When Carlos and them were here with Dalvin. He did that for them. And Dalvin did that for Jaquez. And I think understanding you need 2 guys. You need 3 guys. And it's the team concept. And listen, when you know you can play and you're a good player, you don't, all right, listen, I'm going to get mine. I got to have this guy help me. You know what I'm saying? And it's supreme confidence in yourself. And I think it's been passed down.
Jim, I believe you have 4 turnovers in 5 games. Is this just a cyclical thing, or is there something you can do more to create more turnover opportunities?
Well, you just got to play hard, get tips. Turnovers come in bunches. You got to play sound football. You can't go play for turnovers. You start gambling, now big things come. You get you pressure. You got to rush the passer, make the ball come out early, be in tight coverage. When those things happen, take advantage of the opportunities. Tackle in bunches, strip the ball. Creating pressure to the quarterback and different things in that nature, and then creating negative first down plays. Creating first and second down plays that get negative to try to create long yardage situations to make people take chances. I mean, in that regard, too. And just keep playing hard, sound defense. And when you get a chance to make a play on the ball, you got to make a play.
I was wondering if I could ask a little bit more about Jonathan Vickers. Was he initially receptive to making that move, and have you seen him kind of embrace being the guy who gets the block that springs the game-winning touchdown and that sort of thing?
No, there's no doubt. Jonathan's a great guy. He's learned that role, and listen, he can catch the ball. Now we're starting to incorporate him in the running game more, catching the ball out of the backfield, a complete guy, and again, little unsung hero things in what you do, and that's when he sees that's where his role was, and he got very good at it. He's being very unselfish and doing a good job.
With Cam, you talked about at the beginning of the year how he wanted to break every run. Mm-hmm. How have you seen him develop into a more patient runner?
Well, I mean, we're educating him. Jay's doing a great job of educating him every day on where the run should go, not the result of the run. The read takes you here. You stay here. You push that pile. You hit that hole. You do this. Trust everything about the process, about how he does it. Jay's doing a great job of that, and we're trying to do that offensively. And then then that natural instincts, because what I think happens when you're trying to break touchdown runs, it goes back to my saying, see a little, see a lot. See a lot, see nothing. He's seeing everything and was trying to bounce around instead of training his eyes to read the blocking scheme in front and reacting. And all of a sudden, that road's taking you to where you got to go, and now the big runs are starting to come.
At wide receiver, do you have hopes of getting Keith Gavin and George Campbell back in the mix this week, or what's their prognosis?
We'll see in time. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
This is going to be kind of an odd question, but do you enjoy, if you weren't coaching against him this week, would you enjoy watching Lamar Jackson's film?
Yeah, I mean, you enjoy watching any kind of player that is dynamic like that because you don't get to see those guys like that all the time.
But as a coach, I assume you don't rewind it and like, oh, wow, look at that play. That's an unbelievable play. I want to watch that again.
I will. If I'm watching film, I'm watching defense, go back and say, wow. Because then you look back and say, all right, how did he do that? And what did he do that? Is there certain keys, the way he moves? Does he cut a certain way? Does he spin a certain way? Does he always look a certain way? There's certain things that happen that he likes to do. I mean, you study it as you admire it.
Has there ever been an opponent going back in all your years that you really admired and you made a point of watching his film and rewind it?
Oh, lots of them. I do. I mean, I respect other guys and people who play the game and play the game hard and play it the right way. I have been receivers, been offensive linemen. I mean, been phenomenal offensive linemen I've went back and watched. Running backs, quarterbacks, defensive linemen. I go back and watch. Some of those guys I've played against and coached against, you're going, Lord almighty. You sit there and you're crying as you're watching it, but you just admire the ability and the admiration of how to play the game. Guys have been on your team. I've been on teams with guys and used to go watch the defensive film. Of certain players just to watch them play. Guys that I've been here with. I respect guys who play the game the right way and have that certain ability.
Jimbo, you mentioned how James is giving you good information when he comes off the field. Mm-hmm. How about after reviewing film and week to week, is he not making the same mistakes more than once?
No, he isn't. He doesn't. And he comes in, he'll come in after watching his film at home on his iPad, have a list of questions. I did these wrong. Did you see? And I'll have my list of things and just things that interacts. He likes that interaction and things and doesn't repeat things. I know. A couple of things, there's things that are harder that you got to work more time on. They're not polished, but you see him getting better and better each day.